Yeah, so you mentioned something. Well, I kind of mentioned it too, and that was like we're seeing early exits for people that are getting out. Whether again, for me, this is just me from the outside. I have no empirical evidence on any of this, but it looks like that 8 to 15 year uh, police officer is the one we need to be worried about right now. Those are
Mm,
our most veteran cops on the street, our most experienced cops. And when you talk about value, to me, especially when you have a new generation coming in, however we define that, those guys or those people, guys and gals, are
mhm.
the most important because they're the ones that are on the street with them, showing them the way. And so I wonder the frustrations that they're feeling and shifts that they are seeing that you've already described, right? And they're inherently aware of this, like they get it. It doesn't mean they're not frustrated by it, or it's that they're at the same time doesn't mean they're accepting of it. What shifts, if any, have you seen anywhere, like in departments where departments or agencies or just the profession as a whole, maybe we just keep it that way, is adjusting to that and trying to help those folks maybe understand or navigate the newer situation for them because they've been in for again 8 to 15 years. Is there anything happening there? And if there is, what is it? Are there successes, or is this just something that is just so new it hasn't been figured out yet and it's still ambiguous?
Yeah, I know a big trend is, that experience void, right? That vacuum out when people, attrited, right? People left with, let's say, anywhere from 2 to 20 years, right? Whereas they would have planned to go much farther, and that's continuing in some regard, right? But a lot of the people that left in those critical years, 2020, 2021, if they were a few years in, if they were really new, they didn't really know any different, and they were kind of sticking with it. You didn't have a lot of really, really new people leave. What you did have is people with a handful of years, but not tenure, right? So they had experience. They were your field trainers. They were your up and coming leaders. They were your prospective sergeants to be, maybe the officer in charge, the corporal, someone that would be the go to resource. And now, a handful of years later, those are the people that shoulda, woulda, coulda been the sergeants, like the people that you think about. Every department has them, right? Where you think about it and you talk about where would we be if X, Y, and Z people stayed. Oh, that person would be a sergeant. I bet that person would be the senior, the expert detective in this tech, whatever have you, right? Now, with that, I'm not saying that we haven't carried on. For sure, we do, because we have, by virtue of the job self-selection, you have these really hard charging people that come up and they step up.
Mhm.
And I would take aptitude and attitude over experience and tenure, because that's what's more constructive and that's what's going to get you across the finish line. But did it hurt? For sure. Like, did it create a lot of gaps? For sure. And with your sergeants, like, I hats off to the first line supervisors out there, because they're running around ragged with just new people. And there's nothing wrong with the new people. It's just a lot to learn. And I think back, and it's nice to sit down with a couple people, maybe a varying time on, but when I started, and I'll reach across, kind of engage someone in the room that started close to me. I was like, hey, remember how effed up we were? Remember how all the questions we had for Sarge and our FTOs when we were like the 1 to 2 year officers, like we were blowing up the phone all the time because everything was new. It just is. The learning curve is crazy in this job, and yet it is more complicated. It's more litigious. There's more liabilities. There's more contingencies that we're expecting of our officers at every level and our supervisors. That, going back to an earlier question, what are we doing for those people? The good agencies are continuing to develop and show value. The agencies that are running around ragged, and I'm not trying to blame them, it's just we're so reactive. That's almost 99% of what police do, is just react to things, crime trends, what have you. Um, is that we're just ignoring them because we're busy with other things, but then they feel devalued. They look at other things, or they get comfortable. They should think about promoting, but they're better off staying in their
Right.
lane or going to detectives and honing their craft. They see value in that, but they don't want to take on these extra liabilities, if you want to put it that way, with this really under-experienced crew that is more stressful, for sure, in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, so you have this potential leadership that is now exiting or doesn't want the job. And so I wonder, kind of just foreshadowing, or if you can tell the future at all, what your predictions are with this. How long does this take to cycle through? And what is the outcome of this look like in the next 3 to 5 and 5 to 10 and maybe 10 to 15 years? I mean, is anybody talking about this, or is everybody just fearful and worried and
Yeah, that
upset
I
and
mean,
bitter and all that?
more the
Yeah.
latter, and it is at every stage. And I even have to try to check my own biases and I guess thought patterns because we get so cynical in the job partly due to emotional survival, right? Like it's just so rough out there that you don't want to think about all the time, but we're so wired to think of worst case scenario. How is this call going to go the worst ways? So I'm prepared to do it. And then when it doesn't, you're like, okay, like next one, right? But that's what makes us effective. So when there's change, when there's mounting pressures, it's hard, right? Ultimately, where does that leave us? I think with all the generational things we've tracked, I don't know where it leads us, but what I suspect is that we are in an industry in a time where people are going to move on to something quicker. And so my way of highlighting that is like if we continue to invest in our people and develop them and show them that we really care for as long as we be there, that as long as they want to be there, that's my adage. That's what I try to tell my people, which is that our role as supervision and leadership in the organization is providing things like development and wellness and support so that you are armed to do this job for as long as you so choose to do it. Like, as long as you so choose to do it, hats off to you. Hope you do it here. But if you don't, like, good on you. Like, thank you for your time here. We value you. Please go do other things. Go, go into the private sector, go cure cancer, do whatever you need to do. Thank you for your time. And I think that that's hard because it might sound counterproductive when people are thinking you're going to help somebody develop themselves so they can leave. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because what do I want to do? What do we gain by keeping someone here? And I know of
Hmm.
a lot of those conversations, especially in the last few years, where we tolerate some of this
Mm.
really corrosive behavior and we might even promote it. Like, literally, we might promote the
Oh, I think
corrosive
it's very
behavior.
true. I think it's
Yeah.
very true.
So the other piece of that, right? You have young leadership or you have the tenured, unsuitable, less suitable leadership where someone got by because they played it safe. They didn't do a whole lot, but they didn't cause a lot of problems, or they're actually negative and quite vocal, but influential in all the wrong ways. And they're given the mic, they're given the pulpit, right? And that's a disaster for culture. That's gonna create these long term effects that are really hard to recover from.